You may know the novel The One and Only Ivan by Katherine Applegate. It's a great story. But this is the picture book that goes with it. I hope you like it. Ivan, The Remarkable True Story of the Shopping Mall Gorilla by Newbery medalist Katherine Applegate. Illustrated by G. Brian Karras.
It's story time with Mr. Burnett. Story time with Mr. Burnett. It's bound to be something that you won't forget too soon. Ivan, The Remarkable True Story of the Shopping Mall Gorilla by Katherine Applegate. Illustrated by Brian Karras.
In leafy calm, in gentle arms, a gorilla's life began. The baby was born in a tropical forest in Central Africa. He was part of a large family of western lowland gorillas. The troop included babies, juveniles, females, and a male leader, the silverback. The more the baby gorilla grew, the more he played. The more he played, the more he learned. He rode on his mother's back. He listened to the hoots and grunts and chest beats of his father. He watched the older gorillas, clever and quick, as they wrestled and chased and swung from vines. He did not learn about humans until it was too late. Poachers with loud guns and cruel hands stole the little gorilla and another baby. After thousands of miles and endless days in a black, damp crate, at last came light and fresh air. The jungle, green with life, was gone. The gorillas had traveled halfway around the world to Tacoma, Washington. A man who owned a shopping mall had ordered and paid for them, like a couple of pizzas, like a pair of shoes. People cooed and laughed and held the babies. They dressed them in human clothes and fed them human food. The shopping mall owner ran a Name the Babies contest. The winning names were Burma and Ivan. One dark day, soon after the babies arrived in their strange new world, Burma died. Without her, Ivan was all alone, with too much left to learn. While he was little, Ivan was cute and cuddly. For 3 years he lived in a home like a human child. He slept in a bed and went to baseball games. He held babies and rode on a motorcycle. He had to learn many things. Gorillas in the wild don't even... He had to learn many things gorillas in the wild don't ever need to know. The one thing Ivan didn't need to learn was how to eat. The more he ate, the more he grew. The more he grew, the less he could live a human life in a human house. A cage in the mall became Ivan's new home. There wasn't much to do. Sometimes Ivan watched TV. Sometimes he played with an old tire. Sometimes he finger painted, signing the papers with his thumbprint. Mostly he watched the humans watching him. Ivan was about 13 when his coat began to shimmer with silvery white hairs. He'd grown into a silverback gorilla. In the jungle, he would have been ready to protect his family, but he had no family to protect. Year after year passed. People began to grow angry about Ivan's lonely life. Children and adults wrote letters and signed petitions and held protests. Ivan lived in his cage without the company of other gorillas for 27 years before he was sent on another journey. This time the hands were gentle. Zoo Atlanta wasn't a jungle. It was a place with walls. Still, the breeze carried jungle sounds and scents. Scientists who understood the needs of gorillas helped Ivan adjust slowly, carefully, gently to his new life. Finally, it was time. Was Ivan ready? Cameras clicked. Reporters watched. When Ivan stepped onto the cool green grass, the sunlight gleaming on his silver hair, people cheered and laughed and wept with joy. Ivan, the shopping mall gorilla, was in a place with trees and grass and other gorillas at last. In leafy calm, in gentle arms, a gorilla's life began again. And this is the actual Ivan. So this is based on a true story. If you've ever seen the novel or read the novel, The One and Only Ivan by Katherine Applegate, the same author as this picture book, you would get a lot more of the details. This basically just says what happened in the story is true. They captured Ivan. They brought him and the other baby to Washington. They were on display in a shopping mall. The other baby died. There were other animals that lived around him. If you've ever read The One and Only Ivan, here's a photograph of Ivan in Burma, and there's a photograph of Ivan later in the zoo. I guess over time, people became a little more sensitive to what it would be, what life is like for the animal. Zoos changed and became a little bit more natural and maybe a happier life for animals in the zoo during this time. And the idea of a gorilla being on display in a shopping mall became just something that bothered people, and they started petitions and they complained and finally got enough attention to it that Ivan was moved to the Atlanta Zoo. Just to note, your librarian, Mr. Burnett, I actually went to Atlanta Zoo during the time that he was there and saw him. I didn't know the story at the time, I'll be honest, but I did see Ivan, which is kind of neat looking back on it. He died in 2012 at the age of 50, which is a pretty good long lifetime for a gorilla. He is famous if you know the story of The One and Only Ivan for his finger painting, and this is an actual painting by Ivan. And nice little memory here by Jody Kerrigan, who was Ivan's main keeper at the Atlanta Zoo. Shares fond memories. So his life had some sad moments in it, but I do think it got better, and he was cared about and treated a little better later in his life. I hope you enjoyed that. Ivan, the remarkable true story of the shopping mall gorilla. Thanks for joining me.